So it's been about 8 months since the iPhone 13 and 13 Pro Max were released. And since then, there have been flagship phones released from Google, Samsung, and more. So how does the iPhone 13 Pro and Pro Max hold up today? Is it still one of the best smartphones you can buy now? Let's talk about that. Hey guys, welcome to Retether Tech. My name is Jonathan and I've been using the iPhone 13 Pro Max since it was released back in September 2021. And really, let's talk about how this iPhone has held up over the past 8 months. Most of this video will apply to the iPhone 13 Pro as well, since they're pretty much the same phone minus a couple of size differences, and we'll go over those differences in this video. So really, the difference between the iPhone 13 Pro and the 13 Pro Max that I have here is the actual size of the phone, the display size, and the battery capacity as well. Those are the main differences between the 13 Pro and the 13 Pro Max. So let's start with the size of the 13 Pro Max, because this is a really big phone. Those sharp edges that Apple introduced with the iPhone 12 model, we see them here in the iPhone 13 models as well. And even though it makes for a nice looking design, it makes actually using the phone a lot more difficult, because really this isn't a comfortable phone to hold. Those edges kind of dig into your hand when you're using it. And because this phone, the Pro Max, is so large, it just makes it really uncomfortable to actually use. And really, after using the Pro Max for about 8 months, there were times that I regret not going with a more manageable and smaller Pro version. But at the same time, there are things that I just love about having a bigger phone. The Pro Max just has things that the regular Pro iPhone 13 just doesn't have. So it's kind of a hard choice. I would say if you're kind of split between going with the Pro and the Pro Max, you kind of just don't know which one to go with. I'm kind of used to using large phones, so I like having a larger display to watch content on. And the bigger battery is always great. I always love better battery life. But if you're not used to using a large phone or a big phone, this thing might take some time to get used to. You might be better off just going with the regular iPhone 13 Pro. It still has excellent battery life and it still has a large display at 6.1 inches. You're just not going to get the large display that you get with the Pro Max, but it's not like iOS takes advantage of having that larger display. You're just going to have a bigger display on the Pro Max to watch content on. So if you like to watch content and you like having that larger display, this might be worth it for you. But now let's talk about performance. The A15 Bionic inside the iPhone 13 Pro and Pro Max is a beast. Hands down, it's the best chipset you can find on a smartphone right now. Even 8 months later, this phone feels snappy and just as quick as it did on day one. And this phone can pretty much handle anything you throw at it. I was having some issues with the phone about a week ago where it just wasn't performing right. The phone would just heat up and then it would freeze and I had to just restart it a few times and it still kept happening. The first thing I did was to check to see if there was an iOS update available. There was, so I quickly updated. And that was it. It seemed to fix the issue. So I'm guessing it was something with software, not really something with the hardware inside. But other than that, the performance on this thing has been amazing, which is what you could expect from an iPhone, right? They perform really great. Even 2 years down the line, they're still going to perform great. And this phone is really no exception to that. Now, battery life. This phone has been amazing when it comes to battery life. One of my favorite parts of this phone is the battery life that it's able to get. In my original review of the iPhone 13 Pro Max, I said that this was the best smartphone that I've ever used when it comes to battery life. And now 8 months later, that's still the case. My iPhone 13 Pro Max gets through a full day with heavy use with no problem. I even have plenty of battery to get through half of the next day. I mean, this could get through 2 days if you really wanted to. Obviously, it has a bigger battery than the regular iPhone 13 Pro, but the battery life on that phone is still great as well. It's not going to be as great as the iPhone 13 Pro Max because this phone is just a bigger phone with a bigger battery, which kind of equals more battery life. That's what you could expect with the iPhone 13 Pro Max. That's kind of one of the pros when you go with the iPhone 13 Pro Max. So look, performance-wise, it's an iPhone. Even 8 months later, the iPhone 13 Pro and Pro Max, they're going to outperform flagships released today. I mean, that's how great Apple's chipset is. and that's what you could expect with an iPhone. Now let's talk about camera. This was also one of my favorite parts of the iPhone 13 Pro Max, and even though I still love the camera, I have seen how other smartphones have really caught up to the greatness of the iPhone 13 Pro Max camera system. I mean, in reality, when it comes to smartphone photography, it's really more subjective than anything else. Samsung, Google, even OnePlus have really improved their camera systems. And now you might prefer the pictures one of those smartphones are able to get or able to take, or you just might prefer the photos that come out of the iPhone's camera system. It's really going to depend on what you prefer. That's really where we're at when it comes to camera systems on a smartphone, which is kind of great because you just pick the smartphone that you prefer. The camera system or the pictures that you like best, you pick that smartphone because you're still going to get a great shot either way. It just comes down to which one you like best. But I will say, even though it's close, 8 months later, I still prefer the photos on the iPhone 13 Pro and Pro Max's camera system. Really, I just trust this camera more than the others. I know that I'm going to be able to get at least a decent shot from this camera system. It offers a lot of flexibility with all the variety of shooting modes, and I still love the video that the iPhone is able to capture. It's still, in my opinion, the best phone when it comes to video. Cinematic mode is a really cool feature that Apple kind of unveiled 8 months ago when they released the iPhone 13 Pro and Pro Max. And even though it does have some use cases and it's pretty cool to actually use sometimes, I found that I wasn't actually using it as much as I thought I was going to use it. Obviously, when Apple announces these new features, you think, oh, I'm going to use that every single day. Turns out I don't really use cinematic mode all that much. And the same thing applies to the picture profiles. I thought I was going to use those picture profiles a lot, but I tend to just use my favorite and not really change it. I just go with my favorite picture profile on the iPhone 13 Pro Max's camera system. I kind of forget about those picture profiles, honestly. So there's a lot of features that the iPhone 13 Pro and Pro Max will have in the camera application, but you may not actually use all of them. But really what I love about this camera system is I just don't have to worry about getting a decent shot. I know that this camera is gonna get a good shot no matter what. No matter what situation I'm in, it's gonna be able to capture a pretty good looking shot, if not fantastic looking shot. And you don't get that with every single smartphone. Sometimes you have to do more work to get a nice looking shot. Sometimes those photos are better, but you have to put more work into it. With the iPhone 13 Pro and Pro Max, they just work. I know the camera is going to be dependable when I need it. So now 8 months later, I can honestly say I still really like this camera. It's still probably my favorite. And it's really not because of anything objective. I just like the style of photos the iPhone gets. I just prefer that, and I prefer the video on the iPhone than what the competition offers from Google and Samsung. Now the display on the iPhone 13 Pro Max is a 6.7-inch Super Retina XDR display with ProMotion, and it's still an amazing display. I love that the iPhone now has an adaptive refresh rate up to 120 Hz. Of course, Apple has sort of played catch up when it comes to that because, let's face it, Android phones have had that for years now. But now with that feature, I consider this one of the best displays on any smartphone. Now, I still prefer the displays on Samsung's flagship smartphones, but that doesn't mean that this isn't a great display, because it still is. In fact, I don't expect Apple to change much when it comes to the display on the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max. Unless they decide to add a technology like mini LED to those iPhones, I don't see them doing that, at least not with the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max. So really what that means is you're gonna have really the best display that you're gonna get on any iPhone with the iPhone 13 Pro Max for at least another year. At least that's what I think. This phone could be over a year old and it's still gonna have one of the best displays that you can get from Apple on an iPhone. So 8 months later, still has a great display. It's gonna have that same great display for at least another year, in my opinion. Maybe with the iPhone 15, we could see a new display technology with those Pro phones. But even then, that doesn't make this phone's display trash or anything. It's not gonna have the newest technology, but it's still gonna be a great display. So the question is, how has the iPhone 13 Pro and Pro Max held up? Well, it's still an amazing smartphone, right? Battery life is still top notch. Performance, it's still really the best you can find on any smartphone. This is gonna outperform any 2022 flagship phone from Samsung or Google because of that chipset. The camera system is still great and it won't disappoint, and the display is what you could expect from a Pro iPhone in 2022, at least in my opinion. So that means the iPhone 13 Pro and Pro Max, they're definitely worth picking up today, right? No. Look, the iPhone 14 models are just around the corner. You could expect those new iPhones to be released or unveiled around September. So I would honestly just hold off. If you're looking to upgrade, just hold off for another 4 months and you'll have the newer iPhone available to you. Now, with that being said, if you need a new phone and you need it now,
it's my money and I need it now!
And you're looking for a great all-around flagship that's gonna hold up for years to come, well, yeah, the iPhone 13 Pro Max is definitely worth taking a look at. 8 months later, this is still a solid choice, and there really isn't anything that makes me hesitate from recommending these phones, unless you can wait another 4 months. That's kind of the key, right? If you could wait another 4 months for the iPhone 14, even if you wanted the iPhone 13 Pro and Pro Max, that's the phone you want. If you wait another 4 months, you can probably find those phones for cheaper when they release the new iPhones. But what do you guys think? Is the iPhone 13 Pro and Pro Max still a great option even today? Is it worth waiting like I mentioned? Or do you prefer another flagship that's available right now? Let me know with a comment down below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos just like this one on tech news, reviews, and opinions, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our new videos, and I'll see you on the next one.